Welcome to another episode of Virtual City Hall School. I'm a little bit sad City Hall is closed, but happy to bring you some people and connections. Today I'm visiting Ward 1, where I have Councillor Knack.
Hello.
And also student reporter Rowan is with us.
Hello.
At City Hall School, we learn that the job of a councillor is to listen, to learn and decide, and the choices they make are the ones that give us a really good quality of life. Councillor Knack, I know some things about him. For one is that he really likes pasta. In his spare time, he likes to ride his bike and play video games. And his very first job was picking up golf balls, I want to get this right, on a highway in Spruce Grove, picking them up, cleaning them off, and then selling them. So pretty entrepreneurial first job. I'm going to turn it over to Rowan, and he's going to ask some questions and find out more about our Ward 1 councillor.
Hello. So I'm here to ask you a few questions. So let's just get ahead. What is the most rewarding part of your work?
So, it's a tough one. There's a lot of things that I loved about this. But I think the most rewarding part for me is knowing that, I play the tiniest of tiny roles in helping to make Edmonton an even better city. And I do stress that tiny part because, you think about all of the other people across the city who are helping to improve the city, making it better every day, from the people who volunteer on our community leagues to cultural groups and faith groups and business organizations and arts organizations, and you name it, there's people who are helping to make Edmonton a better city. And I'm fortunate that I get to play a small part in that in a very unique way because there aren't many folks that get this opportunity. So for me, it's being able to work with all of those other people across the city who are contributing to make the city a better place. That getting to work with them and interact with them is probably the most rewarding part of what I get to do.
Okay, I wouldn't say that you have a small part considering you're on council, but what's the biggest challenge of your job?
Biggest challenge, I think, is when you're dealing with folks who aren't as interested in having a debate or a dialogue or even a discussion. So I think the nice thing about municipal politics, because we don't have parties, is that most people, when we're coming together to have a conversation about any issue, we're not coming into it sort of this preconceived notion. We're not conservative or liberal or NDP, and therefore folks are, I think, come into conversations with a much greater and more open mind than they might if they were going to engage politicians in other orders of government. But unfortunately, there are still a small percentage of folks who maybe aren't interested in that still. They come into a conversation saying, this is the way you have to do things. I don't want to hear any other perspectives as to why. I don't want to offer up solutions. And if you have somebody who just says, I don't like this, and I don't have solutions, and they don't want to engage with you in a face-to-face or virtual face-to-face conversation, that's still the biggest challenge, because I think we have to remember that, whether it's a city councillor, whether it's yourself, whether it's anyone watching this, none of us have all of the answers. We don't know everything. We're lucky if maybe each of us are experts in one particular thing, if that. And therefore you want to learn from other people and understand, their life experiences that helped inform why they believe the things that they believe. And so that's a challenge, is when you can't have that discussion. That's what makes it tough.
Yeah, it's definitely easier with no left wing or right wing. What did you want to be when you were my age?
Well, it's tough. I was thinking about that. I said, and so I think when I was your age, I'm trying to go back. I was still interested in business a little bit more than anything else. That was part of my um, what I'd focused on, even what I went to university for. Uh, I wasn't exactly sure, I think, at that point in time where I wanted to be within business. My passion, at the time, my first job was something like starting up a small business where I was selling golf balls. So I liked that. That was actually really fun. And that was a cool way of doing things. And actually made some good money when I was, when I was at that age too. Um, but I wasn't set in a particular area. My dad had his own business for years and years and years, and so I liked seeing that he had that flexibility and passion to sort of work in wherever he was interested in. That changed over time, and so I think for me that was more of the idea, which is I thought I was going to have my own business and do something. As to what industry I was in, that wasn't I wasn't sure. As I got older, I mentioned one of my hobbies is video games, so I actually wanted to work a little bit in that industry, and even had an interview after university for within one of the gaming companies. Didn't get the job, which I actually now I'm really happy about. But yeah, just having my own business. I think that's what I wanted to do.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. What 3 words would you use to describe a great leader?
When Miss Hutt started off our conversation, I think that she talked about. I feel like those words were almost some of the words were really good, because I think you need to be somebody that a great leader needs to be somebody who's listening, who's learning, and I was trying to figure out what the third word would be, because I know when we had it out, we decide, but I think for sure you need to have those two aspects set. So you need to have somebody who's listening, you need to have somebody who's learning, and I'm going to maybe throw in one third one, which is probably understanding, uh, and which is a little different than learning. They could potentially overlap in that regards a bit, but I think you need to understand what you don't know in order to be able to then go learn and listen from those folks to learn about those experiences. So I have learned in this job in now 6.5 years how little I knew. I, you'd be surprised how much that happens. Is that every day I feel like, wow, I feel like I should have known that by now in my life. I'm 36 years old, and there are days where I wake up and I'm like, wow, I didn't understand that in the first place. I didn't understand, this perspective, and I'm glad I've taken the time to hear from folks who do have that perspective and use that to inform any decisions that we do make.
Yeah, those are definitely qualities that you need as a leader. But during this time of isolation, what's something that brings you joy?
Oh, so I know I picked the wrong job for it, but I'm a bit of an introvert, so I'm a bit shy. And so that makes this job tough, because a lot of it is done publicly. Uh, so for me, I know a lot of other folks are really struggling. They're struggling. They have mental health challenges, because isolation can be hard for folks who are so used to going out and about every day. Who, for people want to see their friends and go meet them face to face. And so I know I'm fortunate that that's not been as big of a challenge for me. And so, for me, I think one of the things that's brought me joy is just being able to spend a lot of time with my wife, where she has her own business. And so she gets to make her own schedule. And so we've spent a lot of time together here at home, in part because we're trying to isolate. So that's been really fun. And then I think very selfishly, it's also given me a little bit of extra time to play some video games. So that's something else that's brought me a bit of joy, because I don't have to get up quite as early to ride my bike downtown, so I can stay up a little bit later and sneak in an extra 30 minutes or hour of game time from time to time.
What kind of games do you play?
Oh, you name it. I play, like, anything that's out. I just enjoy a whole variety of things. I can't seem to stop playing this game. It's been out for a couple of years now, but Rocket League, it's like soccer but with rocket powered cars, and I just, for whatever reason, can't stop playing it online. Everyone's got their one go-to games. For some it's Fortnite, for others it's Call of Duty. Like, for me, the one I keep coming back to is Rocket League, and I don't know, I just started playing it and I love it.
Okay. There are There's so many caring citizens in our city. Tell us about some of the hashtag Yay Cares examples you've seen in our ward.
Wow, there are so many great things that have been happening. It's hard to only pick a few, but I think there's a couple that jump out at me. I know in the community of Crestwood, the president of that community league, Diana Steele, she brought together a group of about 50 volunteers in Crestwood and Parkview and a number of the surrounding neighborhoods to form a group who would provide any supports that were really needed within their community. So it started out as an example of these passionate volunteers who would come together, and if there was a senior in the community who, because of the need to self-isolate or because of the desire to try to be out of crowded spaces, didn't feel comfortable going to a grocery store, this group would go and get their groceries, hand deliver it to them. And so they went out and engaged a lot of the local businesses in the neighborhoods to say, hey, we're going to do this. Can you help support this? So like the local grocery store, Andy's IGA, said, yeah, let's do it. So folks can place their order. They collect it all. The person pays for it. And then these volunteers go and gather them and take them to everyone. And so this has been so popular that it expanded to everyone, healthcare workers who are so busy right now that they don't have the time to go to grocery stores. So this community's done a really cool thing about bringing together a number of residents who can provide that support. So I think that was a really good example. I would also say I've noticed that so they're in the community of La Pearl in Ward 1 as well. There's been this La Pearl Cares group that's come together that's doing similar things. One of the leads within the community, Bill, he's been doing a fairly frequent books with Bill. So he's doing a virtual session where he has a theme each day and reads a book to everyone in the neighborhood, and just cool ways to know that there are community connections even when we can't be in a group setting. They're even going as far that every day there's a different theme in the neighborhood. People decorate their homes to have that decoration set up. So it's cool to see. And I mean, again, we could name 100 more because I know that's happening in every community. We have folks who are doing that right now. And it's special to see how people are adapting to something that, we may never experience in our lifetime ever again. This is very unique, but it may shape us for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, this pandemic's definitely brought out the best of us. Yeah. What do you hope that we can all learn or take away from this experience? And what advice do you have for children like me?
Yeah, it's a big question. Something to really reflect on. And I think almost a little bit to the last question is to recognize that even when we can't be together in person, there are ways for us to be together as a community. And there are ways for us to support each other, even in unique times like this. And so I think the advice would be, we need to make sure that we don't forget this. And this may be hard. It's like, for me, I get it. At my age now, I'll never forget this. But for somebody who is younger, who hasn't had a lot of life experience yet, younger people may not realize just how unique this situation is right now. And what I hope they don't do is forget it, because I think, to your point, I've seen so much good come out of this. Yeah, there's been some, and of course there are people who are hurting. But so many other people have come together to try and support those who are hurting. And I hope everyone of all ages, but in particularly younger folks in our city, don't forget this and recognize that every action, no matter how small they think it may be, has such a positive and long-lasting impact on people's lives. And to not forget about that when you're thinking about everything else that you're going to do in your life, that you can make a huge impact even by something that you might think is small, like decorating your window or putting on some sidewalk chalk art, and you don't realize how much that can actually help people. So I hope all people, but including especially our younger Edmontonians and younger folks across the world, realize that they can make a huge difference through what are small actions that in fact are quite large, even though it might seem small.
Yeah, that's definitely a really good answer. So that's all the questions I have for today. Thank you for taking the time to answer my questions. And I think Miss Hutt has something else to say. So.
I sure do. Thank you. That was a great interview. So I wanted to end the interview. I always end it with a challenge. And Councillor Knack, as he mentioned, is a bike rider. I've seen him ride his bike from Ward 1 to City Hall in the winter, spring, summer, and fall. And so I'd like to give you a challenge to think about bike safety. So whether you're a bike rider yourself or someone who's walking on the sidewalks where there might be cyclists, I'd like you to think about bike safety. And maybe you could make a poster and put it on your fence. Or maybe you could write some sidewalk chalk messages about bike safety. Perhaps you want to get together virtually with your classmates and do something with bike safety. Maybe you want to make a stop animation film so that people can learn about bike safety and we all can share the roads responsibly. So that's my challenge for you. And I'd love to see what you come up with. And I'm sure I could share it with Rowan and Councillor Knack as well. You can send it to cityhallschool@edmonton.ca. We'd love to see your bike safety ideas. Goodbye, Councillor Knack.
Goodbye. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the interview. Fantastic work.
And bye, Rowan.
Bye.